Hear it.
I'm a fan of yours also, by the way. I didn't know, but I just didn't know I've been a fan apparently for 20 some odd years.
All right. Welcome to Into the Fringe. I am Cardinal Sin. This is my guest host, Mexican Ironman.
Hello,
How are you doing
sir.
today? How are you?
Okay. Am I coming through loud and clear?
You are very clear.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I am pleased as peach and punch to be here. As you can see, the normal Mexican Ironman today had an alien encounter, as
Yeah.
evidenced by what you see here. And so, the normal Mexican Ironman has merged. I may have been taken up to a UFO, sir, and returned not in my natural body. So
I have to say, you do look a little bit like a hybrid.
a little hybrid. Not sure if I'm reptilian. Not sure. I know I'm not a gray because you can tell I don't have a gray complexion, but that could be the Mexican DNA merging.
That's a very good point.
Working with the grays, yes, sir. But I got a pretty big suit, so I'm a little taller than a gray. So here we are. I'm honored to be here, and I noticed you got about 100 and change subs. When you get up to 10,000 to 100,000, are you going to remember little old Mexican alien me?
Oh yes, sir. You are going to be my guest expert co-host from now until Kingdom Come.
I am so honored. And for the folks that don't know this, that are going to see this, probably obviously later, is that apparently I've been a fan of yours and I didn't know it. Just the other day we were talking, and I didn't know that I had some of your work that from much earlier in your career in my old library. My chin nearly dropped when I realized the Cardinal Sin of today that we met in Doomcock, Xanadu originally.
Yep.
Boy, oh boy, was I in shock the other day. My chin hit the floor when I realized you're the Cardinal Sin of short stories and other works from many, many, many years ago. I actually can't wait to go to that old house and get in the attic and get my library books, which is all sealed up. And I have some old paperbacks and hardbacks and Melmel sci-fi magazines. And those were the good old days when we had printed work, sir. Those were the good old days.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Hey, I just want to let everyone know, sorry we were a little bit late. We were just getting some last minute things up to snuff for you guys. And I wanted to let you know about today's guest. So today on Into the Fringe, we have an archival lecture by Leah Haley. And Mexican Ironman, do you know about Leah Haley?
When you offered me the opportunity, I know who she is, but when you told me you had, what you're going to have tonight and people are going to get to hear, oh boy. And I got to tell you, as a long time, and this is not to be negative, it's more complimentary to you, is that I've been really depressed and bummed out with how Coast to Coast has changed so fast in the last few years.
Me too.
Lord knows we miss Art Bell dearly. We even missed him in the, and I do still watch Coast to Coast and similar shows a lot, but they've really dropped off. And one of the things that I loved about Art and the people that he brought on was their investigative source material and their archival stuff. And that's what you're presenting tonight. You let me get a little advanced screening of it. And wow. Yeah. I don't know. Wow. Wow. I'm speechless.
So let's tell the audience who Leah Haley is and what happened to her. Leah Haley is an alien abductee. She was abducted by both aliens and the military, who was shot down while she was aboard an alien craft. And then when she crawled out of the craft, which you'll see in the show, she was told to remain where she was by a military person. She was kind of out of it. She wasn't sure if he was using a loudspeaker, or just shouting at her. But then she was taken by boat out to a large military vessel where she was, I guess you would say, debriefed, but she was actually yelled at. They wanted to know what the aliens on board that craft had told her. They kidnapped her. They tortured her. They tried mind control experiments on her. She was, it's not only a very scary story from her perspective, but it's also a story that involves MILABs, what are called military abductions. So it's going to be quite a show.
And there's been many researchers that have been afraid to get close to this topic for a variety of reasons. And those that have have historically been, what's the word, ridiculed,
Or
threatened,
snuffed out.
or let's just say accidents happen. Is that how they phrase it in the
But
Godfather
I know what
movies?
you mean. Character assassination. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean just the physical, where something physical happened. There's also whose careers were magically derailed, where they
Yep.
would have sponsors to go on a book tour or lecture tour, and all of a sudden the funding was pulled.
Mark Davenport, who is married to Leah Haley, is an excellent example. He was a friend of mine, and just as he was getting going, he developed a very rapid, fast-acting form of cancer, and it's just like another friend of mine, Carla Turner, who wrote the book Into the Fringe, for which this show is named as an homage. And I got a postcard from her and her supporters about her dying from stage 4 cancer that was virulent, fast acting. By the time I got the postcard, she was already dead. Same thing happened to Mark Davenport, minus the postcard.
And
So,
of
yeah.
it, and of interest, when these things happen all these many years ago, at the time they were brushed off and coincidental. But then you look now, where we're at in 2021, and we now look back decades, and now there's a variety of people doing a variety of work. Are there not possibly parallels and links to David Pilates' work? He focuses on something different, disappearances and so forth. But there's a few episodes where there's been some contact or near contact with certain vessels and so forth, and people suddenly a year or two later contract something, just like you said, and it's fast, and it's diagnosed, but by the time it is, it's fast and it's not treatable, and poof.
Well, Leah Haley, for example, was intimidated by black helicopters. They would fly so low over her house. If it were any lower, according to her, as you'll see in the show, they would have crashed. She had her phone line tapped. She heard strange computerized noises, electronic sort of voices. She heard tape spooling around the spindle of a recording tape device. Now, this lecture comes from 1995, May 2nd, 1995. And the really cool thing about this is that it was a 2-day event that I put on, and Leah Haley spoke one night, and then Mark Davenport spoke the next night. And next week, we are going to have Mark Davenport on his archival lecture, and we're going to be giving away some very rare autographed by Mark Davenport lecture programs from the event. So, people, you do not want to miss next week.
Wow. That sounds interesting. Well, so tonight, how do you want to? How am I gonna? Are we both gonna? Am I? And I'm gonna be. You're gonna be Linda, and I'm gonna be George Art Bell, or
I'm
you're
not going to
George.
be. I'm not going to be Linda, man. I'm my own person. But
Yeah.
no, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and roll the lecture. It's an audio lecture to which I have spent a great deal of time, including all kinds of graphics. And then as people, file in, we get comments and things like that. After the show, we will go ahead and take questions, explain some things, and then we'll introduce next week's show.
Sounds fantastic. I love it. I can't wait. Let's do this. Let's roll.
All right. So here we go.
By the way, I just want to let you know, Gil, that you're under no threat of radiation or any threat alien. My iron suit is containing any mental waves or any possible effect of the alien that merged with me and met him off today. So, sir, you're under no threat while we're doing this live stream, sir.
Okay.
Are we rolling?
We are live.
Yeah, I don't see any video yet. I think you need to share the window.
Okay.
Because
Well,
we're just looking
I
at your
did share
desktop.
the window. So we will go ahead and give it another go. Right here it says
When you
share.
go share screen, it gives you three options. Gives you your
Yep,
whole window.
that's what we're doing.
No. You want to pick the window that's actually showing the video. Up at top, you see application. Then it says Chrome tab. So pick either the application or the Chrome tab that has that video rolling. Mexican Ironman spent too many shows being executive producer for other networks.
Yep.
So
Thanks for having my
there you go.
Having my butt on that. There we go. Sorry about that, folks.
Well, heck, it's one of our first shows. We're going to have technical difficulties.
That's true. All right. How about now?
No.
No?
Well, we see your desktop, but there's no video playing or audio coming out. So what you got to do?
That's funny.
Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna double click on it, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna select the application or window that just has that. Don't select your desktop.
Okay.
Where it says share screen at the bottom. You're gonna click on share screen, and it's gonna give you three options. First of all, stop sharing the screen of whatever you're doing. Just hit stop right now. Stop sharing.
I did.
Okay. Well, no, we can see your share. Okay, there you go. No, you need to hit stop share.
Okay. How about...
There you go. All right, now go to the bottom where it says share screen. And then when it comes up, you have three options in the tab. You have entire desktop, then it says application, and then it says Chrome tab window, right?
Nope.
Okay. What you need to do is go to the desktop, double click on the video audio that file that you want to run. Do that first. Don't share anything. Just double click and get it going.
Okay.
Okay, is it starting? Hit pause. If it's open,
I did.
Okay, now go down to where it says share screen.
Okay.
And now up at the top, you'll see desktop or application tab.
Screen sharing is easiest with two monitors. Screen sharing works best on a good computer. Some screens let you share audio. Look for share audio. Follow these steps to work a video. Okay.
Yes, click on share audio.
Okay. And it's giving me a tutorial about how to share my screen.
It's because it's the first time you clicked on it.
Open a Chrome tab. I see. So I need to start an entirely new tab.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I could do that. Now what?
Okay, go back to share screen and select that tab and turn on the audio on that tab on the bottom left.
Got
it. By the way, how we're starting is there you go. Now, can you go from there and hit Control Open and go find that file on your desktop?
Whoops.
By the way, don't be too discouraged because this the way this stream is going is exactly how the first echo-based network.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How do I go from a Google page to the video that's set up on my desktop?
What kind of video file is it?
It's just a regular old video file, MP4.
Okay, and you're gonna play it on. So what you're gonna do is hit Control Open, Control O. From there, hit Command O or whatever, and then go find that file on your desktop. Who's that good-looking guy?
That's not what I wanted to show.
Click on desktop. Click on desktop, and then
click on desktop.
Are you on the desktop? So just find the file on your desktop.
Okay. So we will go to desktop.
There you go.
And
my oh my!
Here we go.
Mexican Iron. There you go. There you go. There we go.
From 1948 to 19...
There we go. We got audio. We got video. We're rolling, people. We're rolling.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Project dealing with UFOs. During those years, he and the Air Force was debunking of the true
Now turn it up a little bit.
Helped establish the public's overall...
I can try, or we can just be quiet.
However,
Okay, I'll do that. Let's mute.
Something changed. Dr. Heine publicly confirmed the existence of UFO observations by extremely reliable witnesses. In 1970, he coined the terms close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. He constantly called for scientific investigations and open-mindedness towards the UFO phenomenon, and before he died in the late 80s, he even postulated that UFOs may represent an intelligence from a parallel universe or dimension. When we listen tonight to these exceptional speakers, Leah and Mark, let us keep our minds open to new ideas, experiences, and concepts as the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek did. So without further ado, Third Eye Productions is proud to present Leah Haley.
Well, thank you, Roger. Thank you. I really appreciate Third Eye Productions having Mark and me here tonight. And I'd also like to thank all of you for being here. It's very important that people like myself get a lot of support, and this is affecting thousands of people all over the world. And I really do appreciate your interest in this subject. I have to tell you that I wasn't interested in it at all until 1990. I was practicing as a certified, well, I wasn't practicing as a certified public accountant, although that's what I'm trained to do. Instead, I was teaching upper level accounting courses at a small southern university, minding my own business. I guess you can tell from my accent that I'm from the South. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, very strict. And as a CPA, I was accustomed to having everything balanced. If I had a problem, all I had to do was work a few numbers and I could find out what the problem was and solve it, and everything was all nice and neat and in order and organized the way I like it. And 1990, I had my job as a university instructor. I had two very active teenage daughters that I had to carry around to basketball games and cheerleading practice and all that. Was very involved with church and community activities. Was working on my master's degree in business administration at the time, so I didn't have any free time. I didn't watch TV, read, or anything, so I didn't even have time to be interested in this subject. But one summer day in 1990, I had a conversation with my brother and mother that started triggering memories of previous alien encounters that have occurred throughout my entire life. And on that day, my life totally changed. My little Southern Baptist CPA world was turned upside down, and it's just been on a roller coaster ever since. Prior to that time, I'd had two experiences with UFOs. In the early 60s, somewhere between the ages of 9 and 11 years old, my brother and a friend and I were playing outside one sunny afternoon, and we saw a spherical object just sitting in the sky. And there's a sketch that my brother did of that over here on the screen. It was a round, silver object. Sometimes we could see blue on it when the sun would reflect in a certain way. And it was in Gardendale, Alabama, just north of Birmingham, that we saw this object. The spherical object sat in the sky for a long period of time without moving. And then all of a sudden it just started floating and looked as if it landed in the woods. Well, we ran up the street and got the father of the friend we were playing with and said, "Hey, a flying saucer landed in the woods. A flying saucer landed in the woods." And he could tell that we were telling the truth because we were both scared and excited at the same time. So he loaded us up in his car. We drove down to the edge of the woods, parked, got out of the car, went into the woods, scattered out so we could cover more territory, came back out of the woods sort of in a dazed state, but very, very upset that we had not found anything. Interestingly, we never did discuss that day ever again after that period of time, which now seems very strange to me. But we never mentioned it to anybody and never talked about it. Not my brother and I never even discussed it between ourselves. So that was the first experience I had with UFOs. The next one that I remembered occurred either in the late 70s or early 80s. I didn't document this kind of
From 1948 to 19...
end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This particular entity I remember seeing alone in some white light. He was gesturing to me and talking to me telepathically, and he told me that he's storing information, or his group is storing information in a lot of people just like myself. He said that they're storing information to be used in the future, and that it would be blocked from our memory until sometime when we would need it, and then we would be able to access that information. Now, like I said, I saw him alone. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Those off-white colored creatures with the big black eyes, the one I showed you at first. Every time I've seen him in a group of creatures who look just identical to him. They all look like clones. They don't have any visible reproductive organs, so I can't tell whether they're male or female. They all look alike. I usually see about 4 or 5 of them working together in a group. But this teacher I saw alone in bright white light. Now, I've also seen another creature that I call the angel-like man. This guy looks perfectly human in every way. He was about 6.5 feet tall. He had long, blonde, wavy hair, bright blue eyes, real tan-colored skin. I think of the copper tone tanning lotion commercials when I think of this man, because his skin was like a copper tone tan. He wore a long white robe, had a very kind appearance, and I don't remember very much about the encounter other than him telling me to heed the instructions of the teacher. He said, heed the instructions of the teacher. And then he said, pay attention to the messages we send. Pay attention to the messages we send. Now, I don't know what he meant by that, unless he was talking about telepathic communications that I've since been receiving. Now, if this is not something strange for a little Southern Baptist to deal with, I started hearing voices in my head. I received some telepathic messages. Some of these messages are to help me personally. Like one time I was told, get rid of fear, anger, and worry. They create mind noise. And at that point in time, I was so angry at some people, and well, the military, to be honest, that's who I was angry at, and so scared of them because of things they were doing at that time, that it consumed my every thought. And I wasn't getting anything done. I couldn't even concentrate on my tasks. So some of the messages have been to help me as a person. And then there have been some messages that were just to impart knowledge. Like I got some messages about God and time, how time works, and things like that. At any rate, I don't know if this angel-like man is responsible for sending those messages or not. I don't know where those messages come from, but that man did say to me, pay attention to the messages we send. So it's possible that somehow they're able to communicate with me from a distance, and it's his group doing it. But then, like I said a minute ago, I keep an open mind, and I'm real skeptical about these things. So I don't know if that's what he was talking about or not. I don't know where those messages come from. And again, I don't necessarily obey them or take them as truth. I see them as a possibility of being true. Okay, then I've seen another group that call themselves Pleiadians. I remember seeing only females. They look perfectly human too. They had brown eyes, I don't remember the eye color, brown hair. They had brown hair, and they had on uniforms that were brown in color with printed trim on them. And they told me that their group is here to monitor the world situation. They told me that they don't intervene unless it's absolutely necessary, but that they did intervene when they called him the German leader. When the German leader was in control, they intervened. They said that they were responsible for stopping total world destruction when the German leader was in control. I've seen this group a couple of times. Oh, one encounter I had with these entities I find very interesting. I was very upset during that period of time. I think this encounter happened in 1991. I was very upset that my memory was being blocked sometimes when I would have encounters. Sometimes I would wake up with strange marks on my body that indicated to me that something had taken place during the night, but I had no memory. So I was very upset that my memory was being blocked. And one time these Pleiadians took me aboard the craft, and I said, listen, I'm very, very upset with you guys for blocking my memory every single time you take me aboard this craft, and these things happen to me, and then you erase my memory somehow, and you put me back, and I don't even remember the encounter. Why not? Why won't you let me remember? And this one woman told me that they had to perform some medical experiments on me that would be very painful. She said that it is impossible for us to anesthetize you enough that the pain will be eliminated and yet still leave your memory intact. So it's better if we erase your memory. And I said, well, can't you do something? I said, isn't there some way that you can fix things where I can remember some of what happens to me, erase just part of my memory, not all of it? And she said, I'll talk with the ones who are going to work with you and see what they can do. Well, I remember that much, so apparently it worked. One other thing that happened in that encounter that I remembered prior to her telling me that they would try, I saw on little slips of paper names of people, and I assumed that these were names of people who were supposed to come aboard the craft that night, but I didn't recognize any of the names. So when the woman came in to take me back into where they were going to do the medical exam, I asked her if anybody else from my hometown was going to be on board the craft that night, and she said, yes. Do you know so-and-so? And I said, well, yes, I do. And she said, well, she's one of you. She's one of our subjects too, and she'll be coming on board craft later on tonight. Well, I don't know that woman very well, but man, did my curiosity ever get the best of me. You know, I just had to know whether that woman had alien abduction experiences or not. So, but how do you approach somebody you barely know? You know, hey, have you been abducted with me? You know, it's a very touchy thing. But I ran into the woman at a basketball game one night, and I approached her, and I thought, I've got to find out. I've just got to. And so I said to her, you know what? I said, I had the strangest dream one night. I dreamed that I was on aboard spacecraft, and you were on the same spacecraft. Do you ever have any dreams like that? And she said, you know, I never dream. And I said, you don't? She said, no. She said, I have never remembered a dream of any kind, ever. So I'll never know, probably, whether this woman was taken aboard the craft or not, because she said she doesn't remember her dreams. But I think it's very strange. I've never ever talked to anybody who didn't remember dreams before. So I have to ask myself why she didn't remember. So those are the aliens that I have seen and a little sample of what they've done. And now I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about some of the physical marks they've left on my body. There have been many occasions when I've awakened in the morning with what looks like snake bites on my body. There have been times I found them behind my neck and on my ankles. And I have to tell you that my husband was away from home most of the time when these abductions were going on. And there's no way he could have just jabbed me with an elbow or something and caused the mark. And no way I could have done some of them to myself. And my springs on my bed were perfectly okay. So there's no way that bad springs could do it to me. But I've had marks that look like snake bites, and I've had a lot of marks that look like injection marks. I've had them mainly in my arms and in my thighs and in my hips. I don't know whether aliens did them or whether somebody else did them. I've had numerous bruises, all shapes and sizes, especially fingerprint type bruises. There have been many occasions I've awakened and had like 3 or 4 fingerprint bruises on my arms, on my upper arm, and on my thigh. And again, it was when I slept by myself and there was nobody else there who could have done that to me. And I don't know how I got them. One time, it was in May of 1993, I was down in Gulf Breeze, Florida for 2 nights. And over the course of those 2 nights, I had 42 bruises show up on me. I don't know if you're familiar with Gulf Breeze, Florida or not, but it's a hot spot for UFOs. There's a lot of UFO activity in there. I'd gone down there to do some investigation and to skywatch, and while I was down there, I got those bruises. They were about the size of the end of this pen, and all of them were on my arms and legs. And I don't have a clue what caused those 42 bruises. I have absolutely no memory whatsoever. I've had some scars appear on my body, totally healed. There was one on my head. There's one behind my eye where they came from. I have 2 little scoop marks on my chin. I don't mind showing those to you. One of them I've had, the one over here I've had since childhood. One over here appeared in 1991 or 1992, just overnight. Just a piece, it looks like a piece of skin just been scooped out of my face, a little tiny chunk. Now, you know, if you do that to yourself, if you scoop out a piece of skin out of your face, first it's going to bleed. And then it's going to scab up, and then the scab is going to come off, and then it will be healed. Well, this was just healed in the morning when I woke up. I didn't have it one day. I had it the next day. It never bled. It never scabbed. Nothing. It didn't have to. It was already healed in one night, but I don't have any memory as to what caused it. I also woke up one morning and had some indentations in my lower back. Now, there was a bruise on the upper part of my back, and I think it's probably hard to see that, but in the lower part of my back, I had these weird indentations. Now, I've talked to doctors about that, and so far nobody's been able to give me an explanation as to anything they know of that could have caused those indentations in my back. But the indentations stayed there a couple of months and then just disappeared on their own. Okay, then this was not on me, but I need to tell you about this anyway. These puncture marks, 7 around in a circle and 1 in the middle, appeared on a guy who lives down in Gulf Breeze, Florida. I saw those marks the day after they happened. They looked like punctures. He was out sky watching on the beach by himself, saw a bright light. Then he has a lapse in memory, and the next thing he remembered was feeling extremely ill. And he was extremely ill, and he got in his truck and drove to where a bunch of other people were sky watching in another part of Gulf Breeze, and noticed that there was blood on his hands, and noticed those puncture marks. Well, about a week or 2, maybe 3 after that, I've got it documented in my journal at home, but I don't remember the specific date. But within the next few weeks, I woke up one morning and saw red marks, red punctures on my back here behind my right shoulder. And again, my husband was away from town, so nobody saw those marks on my left shoulder. And when I looked in the mirror backwards, I couldn't tell if they formed any kind of pattern or not. But so they had been there quite some time. When I was down in Gulf Breeze again, and I was visiting friends, I took a shower, and they had some kind of soap I wasn't accustomed to, and the soap burned those red marks on my back. My husband met me down in Gulf Breeze for the weekend, and when I got out of the shower and got dressed and went downstairs, I asked him to pull down the top of my blouse and look and see what was burning my neck. And he said, this guy's name, right? The guy who had these marks right here, his name is Bill. But my husband said, you've got one of those marks just like Bill's. But you see, it had been on my shoulder so long that it wouldn't show up very well in a photograph. We took a photograph anyway, but you can see it doesn't show up very well because it had been there for weeks when I realized that it formed a circular pattern. My husband could see where all 7 of the punctures were and the one in the middle. Notice also on the left-hand side, there's one of those 3 fingerprint bruises I was talking about. Can you see those in the back? Yes, okay. One of those 3 fingerprint bruises. This time it was on my back instead of on my legs or on my arms. Okay, here's another picture of it. I don't know which one is better for you back there in the audience. Anyway, when we got back home that night, my husband came home with me that particular night, and something told me I should just have him look at my entire back. So I took my blouse off and said, would you please look at my whole back? And he said, sure. And he said that there was another one of those marks down in the lower left part of my back, but it had faded too much to show up in a photograph at all. So I had 2 of them, and I have no memory whatsoever of how I got them, nor does Bill have a memory of how he got his. He doesn't know, and I don't know. I've undergone 2 or 3 hypnotic regressions to see if I could remember what happened to me when I got those marks. And I can't even remember anything under hypnotic regression, not a thing. So I don't know whether they were caused by aliens, humans, or some strange insect or what. But it's an anomaly I cannot explain. Another night in Gulf Breeze, Florida, I woke up the next morning with this mark, and it's very hard to see. I'm going to go to the next frame and then back up on this. This was a puncture, a straight line, and a puncture. It looked as if something had been clamped into my back. I went over it with magic marker here so you could see the shape of it. And now I'm going to reverse it and see if you can see where it is. It's just barely. Can you see it at all? Yeah? Okay. Well, like I said, I don't have any memory of what caused this either. We were spending the weekend with some friends in Gulf Breeze when this happened. And one of my friends I was staying with said that he did remember an encounter during the night, but he couldn't remember very much. He just said that he remembered being aboard the spacecraft. He was on it. I was on it. None of the other people who were staying at his house that weekend were taken, just us 2. And he said that he remembered seeing 2 two of those chalky-colored creatures with the big black eyes, and then one leader who was much taller and had more human characteristics. But he couldn't find any strange marks on his body after the encounter, and I have no memory of it. So he has the memory, and I had the mark. But that's all we can remember. I mean, that's all he can remember, and nothing else. So it's extremely frustrating to have these things happen and you not know what caused them. Extremely, extremely frustrating. Now, it's like, if these things are going to happen to me, I wish I could remember every little teeny tiny detail, but that's just not the way it goes. Another strange thing that happens to me and just started happening in 1991 was that I hear Morse code type beeps in my left ear. Now, at first I heard them in my right ear. And then I had an experience that involved the military, and I no longer heard them in my right ear, but all of a sudden I started hearing them in my left ear. And it sounds like Morse code, but it's more like beeps, like when you punch the buttons on the telephone, you know, one of those phones, a touch tone phone. It's like that. It's like in Morse code. But it goes too fast to try to write it down and see whether it's really Morse code or not. And another strange thing happened to me in 1991. I was down in New Orleans for the weekend, relaxing for a change, looking out the window at some boats on the river down there in New Orleans. I was in the hotel room by myself, and all of a sudden, I started feeling something sharp protruding from my lower gum, behind my front teeth. And I felt like it was sticking out from my gum, and I kept raking my tongue over it, trying to dislodge it, and it wouldn't dislodge. And I thought at first that something very, very bad had happened to one of my teeth. I thought that maybe a tooth had chipped off inside my gum or something, and it scared me. So I was scraping it with my fingernail and finally scraped it out, and it was a little tiny brass object. It was perfectly square, and I don't know what it was doing in my mouth. I don't ever remember having an accident and getting something jammed into my mouth. I've never had any dental work there, so I don't know how it got there. But John Carpenter of Springfield, Missouri, performed some of my hypnotic regressions, and he took the object and had it analyzed for me. But the analysis really didn't tell us anything. Here's a blow-up of it. That gooey-looking substance down on the bottom is exactly that. It's a gooey-looking substance holding the brass thing up so it can be photographed. The analysis was done using a scanning electron microscope, and a corner was filed off of it. That's why it's no longer square. They had to cut off a corner of it so they could analyze it. But the object appeared to be entirely solid, and it was only 0.16 centimeters square. So that's just real tiny, about the size of the tip of your fingernail. Real tiny. And it was approximately 80% copper, approximately 20% zinc, with traces of aluminum and silicon. And when it came out of my mouth, I was holding it in my hands, looking at it when my husband came into the hotel room, and I showed it to him, and I said, "What is this?" And he said, "Well, it looks like a computer chip." I said, "Have you ever seen a computer chip?" And he said, Not really. I've only seen them in magazines and stuff." But he said, "I think that's what it looks like." He said, "Where'd you get it?" I said, "Out of my mouth." And like I said, we don't know. We don't have any answers. And all of a sudden, I started feeling warm on my feet, then up my legs, and then wham, I was out. It's like a light. Next morning when I woke up, my wedding ring was gone. Couldn't find it anywhere, and I knew that it was on my hand when I went to bed the night before, but it was missing. And I tried to explain that away as just something normal happening, but then I happened to talk to some other abductees and found out that they had lost jewelry during encounters. The subject of intruders, I discovered, had her wedding ring removed and taken during the encounter. And she said, "Don't worry about it. It'll show up some point later in time, and it'll be in a place where you would never think about looking for it, someplace where you don't go or you don't access." Well, sure enough, a couple of months later, it showed up in my husband's bureau drawer and wrapped up in a pair of socks that he never wears, so I hadn't laundered them or anything. And again, what happened that night, I don't know. I just remember this force field coming over me, and it was a warm force field just sweeping over my body and knocking me out. I don't remember anything else. So those things are still happening. Oh, and then, let's see, in March, what is it now, May? Yeah, just a little over a month ago, I woke up with a triangular mark on my body. It was on my upper left shoulder, and it was just solid red. And I can't see it from here, so I don't know if you can see it very well or not, but the solid red mark just appeared overnight, and there's another shot of it. And it was gone within a couple of days, but again, I don't know what caused it. It looked like a burn is what it looked like, but I had not burned myself, so I don't know what caused that. Now, as if these things were not hard enough to deal with, if you're not an abductee, it's really hard to imagine how difficult it is to have these strange marks appear on your body and have these alien abduction experiences, some of which are wiped from your memory. As if that's not enough, I had some other problems that started happening to me in 1990. When I first started remembering my alien abduction experiences, I told very few people because I thought I was crazy at the time, and I didn't want to broadcast that fact. So I told my brother, my mother, my husband, and my best friend. Those were the only people who knew. My best friend's husband was in the Air Force, and she asked permission to tell him about my abduction experiences, and I said, sure, I don't have a problem with that, but tell him not to tell anybody else. I don't want it to spread all over town. He said, okay. And then I wrote a letter to Bud Hopkins asking him for help, and those are the only people who knew. I talked to my brother over the phone, long distance, about my experiences, and fairly soon after these people found out about my abduction, I noticed strange things started happening to me. I noticed all of a sudden I was being followed. Sometimes big white sedans would follow me home, sometimes navy blue sedans, sometimes cars of other colors. And that hadn't happened prior to my remembering my abduction experiences. On a couple occasions, I went home and found that the locks on my exterior doors had been loosened. They were perfectly tight and in order when I went to work, but when I came home, the locks were loosened. I started hearing odd noises over the telephone, sometimes beeps, sometimes clicks, sometimes phones ringing in the background, and then sometimes it sounded like a cassette tape winding around the reel. I started being watched when I would go out to eat. Started being watched by men with short hair, physically fit bodies, and I ain't no Christy Brinkley. So this had not been happening before, and I just happened to notice that it was happening all of a sudden, and I thought there is something very, very strange going on here. You know, what is it? Why all of a sudden am I hearing these strange noises? Why am I being followed? Why am I being watched? And the only thing I could figure out is that I had started remembering my abduction experiences and had told a few people about it. I couldn't think of any other reason. That bothered me, made me very angry, very upset. I became extremely frightened. And when I went to Springfield, Missouri to see John Carpenter for my first set of hypnosis sessions, and then went back home, the first day I went back to work, I caught a man snooping around my car during lunch. There were no other cars on the street, and I saw this man snooping in my car, and it is a long story. But the point is, I traced it. I got the man's license plate number. Being a CPA, kind of, numbers are easy for me, and so I remembered his license plate number, traced it, and discovered that he worked at a metrology lab 244 miles from where I live in a department that's a division of NASA that calibrates equipment on the space shuttle's external tanks. And I thought, oh, why? Just after I undergo hypnotic regression concerning alien abduction experiences, do I have a man 244 miles away from home working with a division of NASA, why is he messing around my car? That was fishy. The same week, my husband came home and said the FBI was at his place of employment asking questions about him. So again, I asked myself, why is this happening? The next time I went to Springfield, Missouri for hypnotic regression, I was greeted at the airport by a man who let me know immediately that he knew I was there to investigate alien abduction experiences. Other things I've had done to me were that and again, I don't have a whole lot of time, so I can't go into these in detail tonight, but there was another occasion where I was dropped off in a field by the aliens after they abducted me, did take me all the way home, and military picked me up, took me to what I believed to be a military base near my home, drugged me, and told me over and over again that I hadn't seen a spaceship. And I told them I didn't care what they said. I knew what happened. I knew where I'd been. I knew what I'd seen. And the only way they would shut me up was to kill me. They told me if it was necessary, if I didn't cooperate, that's exactly what they would do. And I believed them. So there was a period of time that I was scared to death. These people had me scared to death. They were following me. I felt had my phone tapped. They tried to brainwash me into thinking that what I had seen was of no importance. Oh, and they drugged me too, by the way. When they took me into the conference room, the first thing they did was to shove a shot in my arm. And so they did that all against my will. And there have been other times, like I mentioned before, when they shocked me. There have been several occasions that I have remembered them having me strapped down and shocking me. So I became extremely fearful. At first, I would never have talked to an audience like you at first because I was scared to death. Absolutely scared to death in 1991. I was looking over my shoulder every second. There are some people here tonight that I met when I first started remembering things, and they know how scared I was. You know, they saw it, so they can testify to that. But I was just a scared little rabbit. I thought if I talk, by George, those men will kill me. So I updated my will. I wrote letters to my family and stuffed them in desk drawers where I knew my family would easily find them after I had been murdered. And you know, I was a basket case. I didn't know what to do. I still had alien abduction experiences going on at that time. I was just remembering them. I didn't know what they meant. These strange men were following me. I was threatened. All of these things, and I was having a horrible, horrible, horrible time coping. However, I've got to say that some of it happened for the best. The one thing that the military taught me was how to appreciate every single minute. Now, at that period in my life, if I lived one day, you know, I got up and thanked God that I was still alive. So it helps me realize that life is very valuable, and it helps me realize I should be very, very thankful for it. And I started appreciating things more, and I stopped worrying about little teeny tiny things that didn't matter. So, you know, there's some positive results that have come from all of this. Another thing that I remembered involving the military was at one point in time, I was aboard an alien craft, and it was a chalky colored creatures with a big black eye, and the craft was above a body of water. It appeared to be the ocean or the Gulf, and the alien craft was going down into it. I was looking at a porthole of the craft and saw what appeared to be a military ship down on the water below. I felt a jolt, fell backwards, and then the next thing I remembered was that I had an extremely bad headache. My head hurt real, real badly in the back. It was extremely painful, and I crawled out of the craft, which was on the sand. I found myself on a beach. There was a lot of military activity going on at the time. There were helicopters and airplanes flying overhead, and I looked out and saw a military man with one of these entities flung across his shoulder. I noticed that the alien was still alive. The way I could tell is that he barely turned his head, and when I saw his eyes, I knew that he was still alive. I heard somebody yelling at me. It sounded like through a megaphone, but I don't really know if it was through a megaphone or if it was just that my head was pounding so much that it sounded like an amplified sound. But there was a man yelling at me to stay where I was. Well, I looked around and I didn't see any hotels. I remembered that I was taken from a hotel, and I looked around to see the hotel and realized that I was in unfamiliar territory. I didn't know where I was. I still don't know for certain where I was, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. But it was a beach, looked like the Gulf of Mexico, and there was a lifeboat that came up from the water. There were two men in it. They had on white uniforms like our Navy sailors wear. So they put me in the little lifeboat and took me out to a military vessel out on the water. When I got up on the military ship, there was an alien lying on the deck, and he was still alive. Now, I don't know if that was the one I had seen earlier on the beach or not. It is possible. because the whole time I was going out to the military vessel on the lifeboat, there were helicopters going overhead. And when I had been on the beach earlier, I saw a helicopter approaching the man who had the alien slung on his shoulder. Since they all look alike, it's possible that the one on the ship that I saw was the one that I'd seen on the beach earlier. At any rate, there's some missing. I had remembered 4 aliens being on the alien craft before the crash, and now I had seen 1 or 2 at the most, so there was some missing. I don't remember a whole lot more after that. The only other thing I do remember is being led down some stairs in the military ship, and I felt so bad and so ill that I had to sit down on the bottom step, and then I passed out, so I don't remember anything else. I have little bits and pieces of memory of other things happening with the military, but whether they're associated with that particular incident or whether they're associated with an entirely separate incident, I'm not certain. At any rate, when I started having flashbacks of this particular experience, naturally I wanted to know where it happened and if there were any witnesses to it. So I got some clues that this incident probably took place around Gulf Breeze, Florida. But at that point in my life, I'd never been to Gulf Breeze. I had been to Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is about an hour away, but I knew that the incident could not have happened there because in Gulf Shores, Alabama, every time I'd been down there, the waves were rather rough and the water was kind of brownish because the waves were stirring up the sand, so the water didn't look right. Now, the sand dunes looked about right, and the color of the sand, I knew that area had white sand, and I had remembered this crash occurring where the sand was very, very white. And I remembered the distance of the dunes from the water and the distance between one dune and another, the amount of sea oak vegetation. But I remembered that the water was very calm and greenish color. And I thought, well, I don't see how it could be Gulf Breeze because the water around Gulf Shores just an hour away is not like that. But I decided to go down there and investigate. So I called Donald Ware, who's the MUFON, who at that time was the Eastern Director of the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON for short. I called him, didn't know him at the time, but somebody referred me to him. I called him and told him what I remembered and asked him if he had heard of any crash occurring down in that area. And he said that he had heard of a few things going on, but not that in particular. If I would go down and talk to him, he would show me what he knew about the things that have occurred down there. So I went down and visited him, and we talked for a while. He got the information, and he said since he lived close to Gulf Breeze, he would investigate that. He'd start asking questions. So he did, and he found out that shrimp fishermen had seen these craft, foreign-looking craft, going down into the Gulf. And he said that he had a report by a woman who saw a strange craft being loaded onto the back of a military flatbed truck. And he knew that some teenagers had been run off of Eglin Air Force, well, an area near Eglin Air Force Base. It was public beach, actually, but the guys were run off because the military told them that there was an incident in progress. And he knew that some strange radar had been brought in while the Ed Walters case was going on hot and heavy. He knew that NASA had brought in a radar ship, and there were some other strange radar brought into the area. So he knew there was activity going on, but he had not heard of a crash. But he told me that he knew of an area that sounded very similar or identical, maybe more identical would be a better word, to the kind of area that I remembered. He said, I know where there's a deserted area where there are no buildings, no hotels, and he said it sounds like the kind of place that you described as the location of the crash. And if you want to walk on that area and see if it looks familiar one day, I'll go with you. So about a year later, I decided that I just had to go down there and see if this territory looks familiar to the crash site. So Donald Ware and Bob Reed, who is another MUFON investigator, and I set off one day, and we walked 13 miles on the sand, and I've got to tell you, that was not easy for me. I was very out of shape and accustomed to walking only about 1 mile a week. So walking 13 miles through white, fine sand was very difficult for me. But we did. We walked from, and you'll want to look this up on your maps when you get home probably. We walked from Navarre Beach, 13 miles east to Fort Walton Beach. This was on the southern end of Eglin Air Force Base. It was Air Force Base property. And this is just east of Gulf Breeze, Florida. Well, we walked on this 13 miles, and I took a couple of pictures as we walked. One was a picture of just a phased array of radar. I didn't even know what these things were that I was taking pictures of. I just thought they looked interesting and took pictures. That was pointed toward Gulf Breeze. And then I took a picture of this. And when we came across this, and I said, "Why are you so interested in that? This looks like a giant kitchen timer to me." And they said, "Well, it looks very interesting to us," and they discussed it and wondered what it was. Here's another picture of it. It might be a little better. That white thing is just a reflection of the flash of the camera. It's not something we photographed. Anyway, after we finished this walk, 13 miles, and I just took those pictures, and that's it. Now, I took a picture of a black helicopter, but it didn't come out very well, so it was not worth showing. But anyway, the next day after this walk, I had to go to an accounting seminar in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I was limping. And everybody asked me why I was limping. And I said, because I walked 13 miles yesterday on the southern end of Eglin Air Force Base from Navarre Beach to Fort Walton Beach. They said, "No, you didn't." And I said, "Well, yes, I did. I know what I did." They said, "No, you didn't. Nobody's allowed on that area. That's restricted property. Nobody's allowed on that base. Civilians can't go there. You must be mistaken. You must have walked somewhere else." And I kept hearing this from many, many people. And I thought, well, that's odd. We didn't have any problems walking on that beach. You know, we saw helicopters and airplanes flying overhead the entire time we were walking on it. You know, there was even a medic team set up in the middle of it, you know, about halfway. And the medic team knew we were there. We went up to them and asked them what they were doing there, and they told us they didn't know. They'd just been given orders to go sit there and wait for further orders. And then I started thinking about that. I thought, oh, this is supposed to be a restricted area. We walked the entire way without anybody stopping us. My phones are bugged. I've been watched. My locks have been tampered with. Duh. These guys thought I couldn't make it. And they were going to pick me up and take me in. I bet I surprised them. But anyway, that was in the back of my mind. I thought, you know, maybe that medic team was set up. Well, the next night, went over to Gulf Breeze to eat dinner with some people, and they said the same thing, that area was restricted. Nobody should have been allowed on that stretch of beach. So I thought, by George, one of these days, I'm going to test that. I'm going to just walk on that beach someday and see for myself if it's restricted again. I'll just go down there someday and not tell anybody I'm going. But I thought, you know, I don't want to go by myself, just in case. So last year, Mark Davenport and I got together, and I had to go to Jackson, Mississippi for an accounting seminar. The seminar was on a Friday and a Tuesday, and I had the weekend free. It really was too far to go back home, so I thought I should do something fun over the weekend. So I asked Mark if he wanted to go with me. And we had already discussed previously the fact that I wanted to check out that theory of that beach being restricted. And also, in the meantime, I've gotten some information about that little white kitchen timer. There was an article that appeared in Aviation Week and Space Technology, the May 24th, 1993 issue, that said that electromagnetic pulse beam weapons were being tested at Eglin Air Force Base and Los Alamos National Laboratory. And somebody sent me a copy of the article, and I'll read just a couple of little excerpts from it. There were two articles in there. The first one was entitled EMP Weapons Lead Race for Non-Lethal Technology. It said the electromagnetic pulse generator is emerging as one of the strongest contenders from among dozens of technologies in the U.S. military's race to find effective weapons to defeat an enemy without causing loss of life. It is known that as you vary the electromagnetic field, you can produce upset of electronic devices by scrambling digital memory or causing the device to destroy itself by diverting current to sensitive components. The services are pressing ahead in research on small devices that can generate ultra-wideband, high-power microwaves that can be used to disable any vehicle, trucks, missiles, and aircraft depended on electronic circuits to operate. Well, Donald Ware was showing this little kitchen timer in one of his lectures in San Diego, and a guy came up afterwards and told him that he was responsible for designing that system, and that that object indeed was an electromagnetic pulse beam weapon. Okay, now when I found out that this electromagnetic pulse beam weapon could cause the disabling of an alien craft without causing loss of life, and this thing was on Eglin Air Force Base, and I had a slide of it, and I realized what I had, I thought, you know, I need to go back down there again and get a better slide of it. I want a real close-up. Now that I know what I've got, I want to get right on that thing. So I decided to go down there for two purposes. One was to get a better slide of that object so I could show it to people when I give lectures. And the other was to test my theory about whether or not that they should be restricted area. So last year when Mark Davenport and I got together and I had to go to this accounting seminar, I said to Mark, you know, we ought to go down to New Orleans for the weekend. It's not very far. And I winked at him. And he said, oh, yeah, we need to go down to New Orleans for the weekend. And we had already discussed while we were out taking a walk one day that if we ever went down and took this walk, we couldn't tell anybody. We couldn't talk about it in the house. We couldn't talk about it over the phone. We couldn't talk about it orally at all. So when I said I want to go down to New Orleans and winked a lot, he understood that I meant, yeah, we need to go down to Eglin Air Force Base and get another picture of that EMC device. So I pulled out the map and I said, okay, here are the roads we would take down to New Orleans. And I said that out loud. And I pointed to the map that would take us to Gulf Breeze and pointed to the roads we actually should take. We did this all the way down to Gulf Breeze. Out loud, I was saying, well, we would take like I-55 down this part of New Orleans and on them. But then I was pointing to the roads we really should take to go to Navarre Beach and Gulf Breeze and Eglin Air Force Base. So we went down there and checked into hotels. We used cash for everything, so we couldn't be traced through credit card numbers. And we wrote letters to some friends, just in case we might get in trouble, get detained. We wrote some letters to some friends and said, if we don't call you before Monday at such and such time, you'll know that we have been arrested and held at Eglin Air Force Base. And we mailed them before we took the walk, just as precautions. So we set off on the base, and the first thing we came across was this sign telling us to keep off, that there were unexploded munitions. So it told us right away that this is a restricted area. And we thought, well, now, we discussed this. We said, is the sign here just to scare people away, or do they mean it? Well, we got right inside the area, and we saw one person was right inside the area, and then there were some other footprints just right inside the area, and then nothing except four-wheeler tracks. So I said, why don't we walk in the four-wheeler tracks just in case there are unexploded munitions, because this thing would have already exploded. So we did that. And I took a few pictures. This really is not anything very important. And see, the first time Don and Bob and I had walked on the beach, they suggested that we stay down close to the water, you know, so we wouldn't get into trouble. But this time that Mark and I walked, we walked right up to the fence, and I took pictures of everything I saw. This is just a munition shelter, I suppose. These are supposedly some kind of radar. And we walked 2 hours on that little stretch and then ran into that. This guy stopped us. He said that he was with the department, that he was a subcontractor for the Department of the Defense. We were on restricted property. We should not be on there, and to turn around and get off the beach right now, immediately, you know, get off now. And he asked our names. We told him. He asked where we were going, and we said, we're going to Fort Walton Beach. He said, not this way, you're not. You get off this beach right now. You turn around and you walk back just the way you came. And Mark said, well, can we eat lunch first? And the guy said, no, you get off the beach right now. Mark said, will you give us a ride? And he got real mad then. He said, you don't get off the beach right now, we're going to give you a citation. So we did walk off, and he had a buddy with him. The two of them followed us the entire 2 hours until we got off the beach. So I didn't make it as far as electromagnetic pulse beam weapon the second time. It was about halfway on that 13-mile stretch, and we didn't get halfway when Mark and I walked. But it did something for me, though. it certainly proved to me that that area is restricted and that people aren't supposed to be there. So now, why did we make it the entire 13 miles the first time when people knew we were coming? And I started thinking about it and thought, okay, phones were bugged. They knew we were coming the first time. They were ready for us. They had a medic team in the middle of the place in case we couldn't make it. Second time, they don't know we're coming and we get run off. So that leads me to believe that there is some group that wanted us to walk on that beach the first time. I started talking publicly by this point in time. I finally, even though I was so scared in 1991, I finally got so angry that the truth was being withheld that I decided I was going to talk anyway. And if they killed me, so be it. The truth was more important than anything else to me. And I was not going to let these people intimidate me anymore. So I thought I would talk. Well, by the time we walked in 1992 or 1993, whenever it was, I'd already been talking everywhere. So I thought, okay, these people know I'm big mouth. I mean, they know I'm a big mouth. They know that I'm going to talk about this, and they allowed me to walk on this beach, which means they want me to talk about it. Okay? But how does that jive with the fact that I've been drugged, interrogated, threatened, shot, and all that? It didn't make sense for a while, but now it does, because I finally concluded that there are at least two different factions that work here, and I'm caught in the middle of them. You know, there appears to be one group within our government and military that wants to keep this covered up permanently. You know, probably for their own technological advantage and power and money. And then there's another group within these agencies that feels that we are individuals with certain rights, and we have the right to know the truth. And I think this group is behind all the information that's coming out now. If you turn on the TV, you see it everywhere. Now, X-Files is a fictional show, but I can tell you from my own personal experience that there is an awful lot of truth in that show, an awful lot of it. They discussed abduction experiences on Frasier one night, picket fences. It's on a Rice Krispie treat cereal commercial right now, RCA. I mean, if you look, you will see it everywhere on TV. And I think it's because there's a government-sponsored public acclamation program in effect by one faction within these organizations. And I've got to tell you that I don't feel any animosity toward the military and government in general because of what I've gone through. I realize that most people within those organizations don't have a clue as to what's going on, and that it is just an elite group who's caused me trouble. So there's no animosity there. But I feel that we have a right to know what's going on, and I am extremely tired of the cover-up. And I really, really do appreciate everybody who has the courage to speak out about this so that it can't be kept under wraps anymore. Well, I've got to stop now. I've got time to take just a few questions, and then we are going to take a 15-minute break. Mark and I will be glad to autograph our books during the break and after Mark's lecture. And we also have other books and texts that other people have written and produced. So we'll be glad for that. And I know that there are going to be a lot of people who want to ask us personal questions and talk to us tonight. And there's not enough time to go around, and I hate that, but I will be glad, and so will Mark, to give our addresses and phone numbers and fax numbers to all of you, and we'll be glad to communicate with you later. We're on the road a lot, and we're not home very often, but when you can catch us, we'll be glad to communicate with you, so please keep that in mind. Okay, anybody have a question? Yeah.
Yes, was it ever occurred when you were abducted, your husband there, and your father was not in the state?
Yeah, now I've heard of that happening to people like that, where it appeared that there was a replacement put in place, but you see, my husband was away from home all the time, almost. He just come home on the weekends, so we didn't have that problem. But there was one time though that I remembered him being zapped. I call it zapped. I don't know the proper scientific term for it, but I remember one time a green sphere of some sort coming into the room, and I knew that green sphere was used to knock him out somehow. And then I was taken, and he had the memory. He's not my husband anymore. He was very supportive at first, but then all this got to be a little bit much. he believed me. He knew what was going on. It kind of, he just couldn't deal with it. But one time he felt himself being pulled out by this force field, and he was screaming, no, leave me alone, and he was grabbing onto the mattress. So that proved to him that it was happening, and he saw evidence of the military harassment, so he knew it was going on. But that's the only time that he had any evidence of it. Yeah. No, I would love to have MRIs, CAT scans, and everything, but I just simply can't afford it. I would love to, if I could ever come across somebody who had the equipment and could volunteer doing it, then I'm all for it. I would love to, but I just can't. Yeah. I've heard that some of them don't show up. I've heard that some that have come out, the people have had MRIs and didn't show anything yet. An implant came out later. So some kinds don't show up. Okay, the question was, do I agree with Whitley Strieber's outlook on all this? Well, I have to be honest and tell you that I haven't read very much about this subject. When I started remembering things and undergoing hypnotic regression, my psychotherapist asked me not to read anything because he wanted to make sure that everything I remembered was pure and I was uncontaminated. And he even kind of screened the people I talked to for a while and made sure that they didn't tell me anything. So I haven't read very much. And then after I remembered so much on my own that it didn't matter, that's the point in time when I started writing my own book and lecturing about this stuff, so I don't have much time to read. So my reading on this subject is extremely limited. So to be honest, I don't even know his viewpoint on the subject. I intend to read his stuff someday, but I don't know when I'll have time. Yeah, other questions? Yes. The last experience that I remember with any military was in the fall of '93. So if the military's picked me up and done anything to me since then, they're doing a better job of blocking my memory. Yeah, we have evidence still of my being monitored all the time. There was a little notice here's some evidence of it. There was those of you who are members of MUFON read in the MUFON journal that Mark and I were getting married before Mark and I knew it ourselves or announced it ourselves. There was a write-up in the MUFON journal that said that we had announced our engagement, and we had not. And we had discussed getting married only in my house, nowhere else. We hadn't told any family, we hadn't told any friends, nobody. We just discussed it in our house. So for anybody to have known that we were going to get married, they would have had to have had our house booked. Our mail tampered with, things like that. I still have I didn't mention the black helicopters. Some of you have heard about the black helicopter intimidation, black unmarked helicopters flying over abductees' houses real low. I've had that happen to me too. On 3 occasions when I went to speak to a group of students in Mississippi for the Mississippi MUFON director, the state director, 3 different times, either he or I happened to be involved in one of these black helicopter flyovers. One time when I was speaking to his group of students, I was talking about the black helicopter flyovers when one actually flew by the classroom, and the whole class got up and ran to the window and saw some of them made it too late, but some of them saw it. So that happened. That has happened even within the last 6 months. So the last time, Mark had just left home, and one came right over the roof, and I ran outside. First, I went up to the office to grab the camera. I thought, I'm going to take a picture of this thing this time, and then I realized the camera was in the car, so I couldn't. The car was gone. So I ran outside and turned around, and the thing was right over the roof. I mean, right over. It was just as low as it could get without crashing, and then it flew on over the trees and just barely cleared the trees. I don't know what these things are doing unless they're just still trying to intimidate me. And it did shake me up for a little while, but it certainly didn't have any effect on my actions or what I say or anything like that. But yeah, it's still going on. I don't know why. Now, I'm not being threatened, though, vocally. Nobody lately has threatened to kill me or anything of that nature. So I'm not scared anymore. You know, it's been since 1990 that I started remembering things, and I'm still here, and I'm still alive, and I'm still fine. So I'm no longer afraid. And believe me, if they were going to kill anybody at this point in time, they certainly would have killed me before I started spouting out all this stuff about the cover-up. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that anymore. Yeah.
The time when you were abducted by the military, where did you end up afterward?
Back in my own bed at home, and I don't have a clue how I got there, except 2 times I remember. One time I was brought home in a navy blue sedan, and the other time I remember being loaded into the back of one of those green trucks. I don't actually remember being driven home. The last thing I remember was being put in the back of the truck.
Since the military interaction is interfering with any abduction by the standing by that, or if they back off since the military is trying to intervene to find out what's going on, or is it normal to do that?
Okay, you want to know kind of the relationship between the military and the talkie?
The medical things you're talking about,
Yeah.
are those normal, those kind of stuff?
Her question was, what kind of interaction has there been with the talkie flights with Big Black Eyes since I remember the military intervention? To be honest, I don't remember seeing those talkie colored creatures with the big black eyes in a couple of years. Now, it's possible that I'm still having encounters, but I'm certainly not remembering. You know, the encounter that I was talking about earlier, the one where my wedding ring was gone, I don't know who picked me up that night. I don't know what creatures it was. I don't know if it was the ones with the big black eyes or if it was other ones. I don't know, but I have no conscious memory of the ones with big black eyes.
Okay.
And
And then the instance would be on the beach, maybe saw the one that went over his shoulder, so that was the only time that they were seemingly at the same place at the same time.
Right. Yeah, the beach incident's the only time I saw them at the same place at the same time. But the time that I was taken into the conference room, the guys with the big black eyes had been the ones to abduct me before they dropped me off in the field. But they were gone by the time the military showed up. Maybe. Yeah.
Do you think alien abduction can be somehow interpreted or compared to so demonic abduction you hear about in pop media? In other words, do you think people who claim to be possessed by demons are interpreting that as alien abduction?
I don't know too much about demon possession except for the question is dealt with demon possessions. I'm not possessed by demons.
Thank you.
Yes. One more question, then we're going to take a break. Yeah. Well, yeah, his question is, can they go against my free will? I mean, you know, can I, if I try to say no, can I effectively stop the abductions from happening? I really don't know the answer to that question. I know that there are a lot of people who think that you can, just by your free will, protect yourself from it. I'm not sure about that yet. As far as I don't have a conclusion about it. I have an opinion, but that's all I would give you would be my opinion. I haven't seen any instance where I could really have fought against it. I don't have any conscious memory of trying to stop it because I'm not as afraid of that as a lot of people are. It was the military who scared me to death, not the aliens. Okay, that's all. We need to take a break now for about 10 minutes. Thank you very, very much.
Wow. Let's can you bring us up and let's pause her and let's go over some things here, boss? Are you there?
You bet.
Wow, how did you get this tape? Because I haven't seen this on the internet, or at least not on YouTube.
I recorded this when it was a lecture that I put on. I'm the only person that has this.
Wow. Well, I took some notes. Do you mind if I just jump right in and help generate some reactions for the folks when they watch this later and get some comments?
Go for it.
You know, some of what I'm going to say, as you know, well, actually, you know this, but not many people know this because I came into the YouTube through Comicsgate and all of that, and with Doomcock, and you know, I used to be known as Mike the Mogul. He gave me the moniker Mexican Ironman and stuff, and I haven't talked about, but I'm an avid reader, similar to Gary. I've read. I think I read or try to read and watch everything out there about all these topics. Okay, and I am particularly interested in the most controversial of those. Now, you already at the beginning of the show talked about what happened with her when she came out and how what. Yeah, I don't want to repeat any of that. Anyone who watches this, if you didn't see the very beginning before we roll the tape, you need to go back and see what Cardinal sent an excellent 5-minute overview of how her story was handled by the military and the private sector. So I don't want to get into that, but I do have some notes I want to talk about, and in no particular order.
You get into whatever you want to get into.
All right, boss. So what I saw from this is that to me, is this accurate? Is this believable? I believe it is, and let me tell you some reasons why. She's talking very quickly, number one, and she's telling a story, and various segments of her happenings have been documented and told in other venues, but not this comprehensively as you have it. What she did here, my first point is that, ladies and gentlemen, listen to how she talks. This is not a woman who made things up. She's recounting things with an incredible level of detail. And the reason why she's going so fast and talking quickly is because it's so burned into her mind, similar to a computer that's pulling stuff off the hard drive. That's my first point. So if you don't believe it, you need to believe it. Number one. Number two, she mentioned that it destroyed her marriage. And there are a lot of people that don't talk about this stuff who have experiences, and the reason they don't talk about it is either there are physical, emotional, or other impact, on the people around them that are close to them. And when experiences like this are wrapped up in that, it's very hard for them to have the courage and emotional fortitude to push forward. So this destroyed her relationship and her marriage. So she feels so strongly about these truths that she had to plow through them. And obviously, I made a little quote here. My husband was very supportive for a long time, but then after 2 or 3 things started happening to him, just because he was around, well, they're no longer together. But she did make a point of mentioning that he rode this hurricane for a while with her, but then the hurricane started to spin around his own house, and he was out. And so that tells you, although he didn't write a book or go on a lecture tour, but that tells you that if this stuff was made up, no one would risk destroying a marriage and a relationship.
Absolutely.
Second reason. My third point is what I mentioned earlier, that this is original content. It's not on YouTube. It's not anywhere. I can't wait till you start. Well, I'm not going to sell it. I can't wait till you release this in pieces. My next point that I noticed was that she mentioned for a fact that she hasn't received any money related to what she's done. She's doing this because it's important to share. Although she did release a book, she made a comment too. Someone said, well, if this is also true, then why don't you do
3 books?
3 books. I'm sorry. Now I'm going so fast. I'm so excited by you inviting me here. Thank you so much for this, brother. I'm so excited because I thought I had heard and read everything about her and her situation. Anyway, let me keep going. So there's no monetary incentive here with this woman. Although she wrote some books, the vibe I got is it was more to document what happened.
Anybody that thinks that people get into UFOs and writing books and lecturing, with the small exception of Whitley Strieber and a couple other obscure people that no one's ever heard of, right, you're smoking something.
Exactly. And here's another thing I noted. I didn't realize it, because when I'd heard about her before, I'd only heard about one. She experienced the frequency of events throughout her life happened over and over and over and over again. And it's interesting because with some of the work that's been done internationally, not in the United States, that is a common pattern. Mm-hmm. That it is something that is a lifelong a series of events. And each story that she told had the same level of detail as other stories that she told, that she recounted.
And she didn't change it.
And she didn't change it. And the next comment, the next note I have here is that I thought it was interesting in the Q&A when someone said, well, why don't you just tape this? And then she said, look, I've tried to document this in a variety of ways. She even made the comment that sometimes she thinks she's had a confirmed session and the people don't show up. For various things, like to do things like, test her MRI or do other, sometimes people that want to challenge her and all that. and then they challenge her. She's like, and then they don't show up. And I found that interesting because that's happened with a variety of people with similar stories.
And again, the only person that I know of in the UFO, celebrity community that's been able to afford to do that was Whitley Strieber. And of course, you have Dr. Roger Lear, who, was a podiatrist, but made a lot of headway in getting implants out of abductees.
God,
One
I
of
wish
the
he
really interesting things about that was that they had people that had RF meters and were detecting signals being emitted from those implants until they were removed. And
Yep.
then they stopped emitting RF frequency. And
Yep.
when they looked at those under the electron microscope, it looked like it was biological material with just very, very small computer, things sticking out, like not even antennae, but
Right.
it's the whole world of implants is a different deal entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to send you down that road right now because there's so much. Are you going to cover that in another show, possibly down the road?
Oh yes, absolutely.
All
Yeah.
right, because he was a rare treasure and was never. He, unfortunately, due to his age, he was just coming into what if he could have been with us for another 10, 20, 30 years, I think some really phenomenal things could have possibly happened.
Yeah.
But getting back to my last note or two, I thought it was interesting, and I think the audience, when they watch this tape, should really understand this, which is that what she did in that 45 minutes, was it, or an hour-long lecture, is that she gave a comprehensive, quick précis of all of the things that happened, which are in the books. But when someone is willing to do that, that means that they've got a lot to share and say. So now, earlier when you made in your opening remarks, people don't usually do that in the UFO community. They'll usually share unexperience and they'll talk about stuff offline or in a smaller workshop. But I can see how she flipped a lot of people out because she recounted a whole lot of stuff that I mean, she was just unbridled. She was just completely unbridled, and I can completely see how whatever. I think she would have. I now understand how some of the UFO community people freaked out, some of the government people freaked out, and the private sector people freaked out because she basically did what almost no one does, which is that she was willing to share every single detail of what happened. And I think she took the position that, hey, look, this thing even cost me my marriage and my family. Why the heck not?
Yeah.
And frankly, given the experiences that she had on the ship, that telling people in a room isn't going to be more. Getting in front of a group of people in a room isn't going to be scarier than that. And Lord knows what ended up happening to her with the government folks, which is also documented and not very debatable at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's worse than getting in front of a group of people. So I can see why she was the courage that she had and the fortitude she had, because I think she took the perspective like, look, these things happened to me. And here's the last thing I'm going to close with in my comments, and is that she's just a trained CPA. Now,
with two master's degrees and taught university level courses.
Okay, well, I've never taught university courses, but those who know me in my off life know that. I mean, I went to Stanford undergrad. Graduate work was done at. I went to Oxford University.
You went to Stanford? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I graduated from Stanford. That's where I double majored at Stanford, and I went
Very
to
cool.
Oxford University at Magdalen College for international econ.
You went to Oxford?
Yep. Little
Wow.
Mexican Ironman. Yeah, little Mexican Ironman here. And in my day life, in my real life, or my non-super, I of course put on the Mexican Ironman outfit when I faced, issues on YouTube. But in the daytime, I run a tax and accounting consulting firm. All my clients are, business owners, and through our CPA firm, I'm the owner. I've got some staff and stuff. But you got to understand how accountants are. We are conservative people.
Well, it's like she said in the lecture, sort of again toward the beginning, that if she had problems, all she had to do was run some numbers, look at some columns, and she'd have it fixed. And so she was used to having very standardized, normal, like she said in the lecture. I'm not saying this. This is, a quote from her little old Southern Baptist life. Right. Got turned upside down and shattered when this happened.
See, we as accountants are conservative people. We're skeptical people. The world must balance. There's debits and credits. All UFOs, the paranormal, all this stuff. Unless it happens to you and you really believe the evidence, we basically call it hogwash. I mean, we are so for example, I don't like Lord of the Rings. I don't like Harry Potter. I don't like anything fantasy because
I don't like Harry Potter either.
you know, when when Lord of the Rings came out, I got thrown out of the theater on premiere day at 1:30 because I stood up and I said there was never a Middle Earth in the history of the of the planet. Now there were some Middle Ages, but there was no Middle Earth. I mean, okay, so even in video games, I don't like any other stuff. Warlocks. We as accountants, when you go through the process of taking the classes and then the tests, your mind through all of that stuff they ingrain in you that anything that's not front, that's not black and white, add up, you just throw it out and push it. So I believe her completely, because in order for her to have been, and then she's well educated, and she's well educated, well trained, and her career profession. If the aliens were going to pick someone up that shouldn't believe, not believe, or whatever, it's like one of us, because we're not exactly we're pretty skeptical people. So wow. So well, thanks for having me on and letting me hear this whole thing and be with you. And
thank you for being here.
Will be available to you as much as you can. I think I love the fact that you have source documents. I love the fact that or source material. I think the problem with this, we're expecting disclosure, yet at the same time, in the last few years, things have got coast to coast. In my opinion, it's gotten hell in a handbasket. The guys on YouTube, God, what was that team that used to have a lot of the videos that would pop up?
Secure Team 10.
Yeah, they're gone and stuff. And I really applaud you, sir. And I look forward to. I feel like back. I help Echo Base Network. I feel like today is my Echo Base Network day, and I know you're going to have a grand opening in the next month sometime. But you know what? I think your channel is going to do real great long term. And sir, I'm honored to be your guest. And once we finish your show, I'm gonna need to go offline and get this alien purged out of my suit. But I can do that on my own, sir. I can do that on my own. I don't want to risk any radiological contamination to you, sir. So,
God forbid.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being my expert co-host, my special co-host, not in the short bus sense, just you're my special co-host, and as far as I'm concerned, you're my special co-host for life. You're very knowledgeable when it comes to these things, and it's like you said, one of us is going to be a color commentator, and between the two of us, the knowledge that we have about UFOs, cryptids, disappearances, lost civilizations, megalithic structures, all of that stuff.
Antarctica, alien bases, and historical controversies involving World War II and one. I'm sorry.
And, I also wanted to mention in upcoming shows, we are going to have live guests every week. And we're going to have guests including Don Ecker, and we're going to have Stephen Bassett, who's the creator of the Paradigm Research Group. He is a UFO lobbyist in DC that's been working for disclosure on that end
for a long time.
We're going to have Christopher O'Brien, who's the world's foremost authority on cattle mutilations. We're going to have Peter Robbins. We're going to have people of a caliber that will blow your mind. Mike Barra is actually coming on our show.
Okay. Well, Mexican Ironman will contribute a virtual free tacos in the green room for him, sir, and any beverage that he so requires. Wow. Yeah, I will be here.
It's a big deal.
I will be here 2 hours early on the virtual sidewalk, waiting to be entered in.
Excellent. Yes, please bring the taco truck, and it's gonna be something that I think people will not want to miss.
No.
Once we have, like you were talking about, this is sort of a soft opening. Once we have the grand opening, I think people are going to really have their minds blown by the caliber of live guests that we have. Another one that we're going to have is Philip Mantle from the UK. He is a publisher and a researcher, and also an author of many, many years. And he's not, just limited to flying saucers. He's seen it all. He's done it all. So we're going to have some very, very high level guests, and people don't want to miss that.
I got to take a shout out to you because I promise you I won't be like George Norrie. Hey, you've been kind of busy lately, haven't you? Mexican Ironman actually knows these people in the content material. And I promise you, sir, I'll bring my Oxford and Stanford knowledge to the table, brother.
I would expect nothing less.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I do want to open up to some of the comments and questions that we've received since the video started. So we are going to say hail to Rex Smith. Hail to Echo Base Network. Thank you guys for being here. Hail to old Star Wars nerd Ted. It's great to see you and have you here. Hail to Chris Persia. Absolutely just over the moon that you're here. Hail to Justin Case.
Hey, Justin, what up?
A fellow science fiction writer. So I expect that we will be communicating later on. And hail to Purple Valkyrie, who's here.
Oh my! The legendary Wrench's Purple Valkyrie and Chris Persia are here.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, and I've been typing away at them during the show, and they both said they would be honored to be mods once the channel gets rocking. So that's great. They were my first and second choice, to be honest.
And can I just mention that the Honorable Purple Valkyrie has a Valkyrie show every morning. I believe it's or Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It is. I think it's at was it 10 a.m. Central? I believe. And then is that Latino Slant, the legendary Paulie?
It is. I was going to say hail to Paulie. Latino Slant is here, and thank you very much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for sending out comments, messages. That's just awesome, and I'm really flattered and honored that you guys are here. I did want to mention what we're going to have going on next week. If you can hang on just a minute, I have a little B-roll prepared. But before we do that, I wanted to mention Mark Davenport. And he's going to be the guest for next week, or rather,
good heavens.
Since he's no longer with us, or at least they took the trouble to bury him, it's going to be, again, another retrospective archival lecture of his. He is the author of Visitors from Time, The Secret of the UFOs, which is an amazing book I recommend for anybody. And Mark had the incredible ability as a mechanical engineer and a chemical engineer to take these high level concepts, and he would bring them down from the very technical level down to the level where the layman could understand.
Well, basically what he was saying, from I'm not a writer like you are, but from my perspective as a fan, what he was able to do is simplify it so that you could engage in a debate with anybody, regardless of what their background was. He made everything conversational in terms of whatever the topic was.
He could certainly debate with anybody. He was extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
And like I said, a mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, but he was able to break all these topics down to the level that the layman could understand him. And that's one of the things that he was famous for. So next week, we are going to be giving away some autographed lecture programs. I don't know why, but, well, I have an idea why, but I'm not going to say it here. But I had the inkling to send him about 30 lecture programs, and I asked him if he would sign them. I wasn't sure that he would, but he did, and he sent them back. And we have about 10 left, and we're going to be giving some of those away next week, as well as giving away some flyers and things like that. So people that sign up or just say, hey, send me one, we'll send you one.
I love it. I love it. You're a giver and a sharer. I love it. That's going to be great. And it's something that is rare and only available here at the Cardinal Sin Network. Hey, Michael Pilner just showed up. Hey, what's up, Michael Pilner? What's up?
Hey, Michael Pilmer. Thank you for being here, buddy. Michael Pilmer is a good friend of mine. He is an artist and works for Devo Incorporated.
Awesome.
Like
all right.
The band.
I
He
know.
works for Devo, which is very cool. So, hello, Michael Pilmer. Thank you for being here. So I think we've addressed just about all of the comments.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. And I hope if you came in late or came in after we started, the very beginning, Cardinal gives a great little intro for the lecture. Then we had some technical problems. So you can skip through that real quick. But I think there's a lot of good information here. And I just want to tell everybody that, hey, listen, you're talking about someone who's a trained accountant and auditor is retelling stories. And if you listen to cadence and detail, there are a lot of people on the internet that have analyzed. There's a lot of experts of on the internet of people that analyze other people, and all of the hallmarks of truth are certainly supported and illustrated in that audio file. Great job, Cardinal. I feel really fortunate to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. So let's go ahead and roll that B-roll sort of next week on the Cardinal Sin channel.
Oh, we got a trailer. Sweet.
We do. Yeah, we have a trailer for next week. And because I haven't worked with this, I'm kind of getting my feet wet. It's not going to be the super slick, hey, just roll. I'm going to have
well, for next week, while you're getting that set up, I'll let everybody know that while I will be bringing virtual tacos, unfortunately, due to the positive impact of the ending of The Mandalorian, we will not be having Baby Yoda tacos available next week. They have been taken off the Mexican Ironman menu.
No tamales?
No Baby Yoda tamales either. We've completely eliminated the Baby Yoda tamales, the Baby Yoda tacos, Basically, we came to find out that Baby Yoda ended up starting as a controversial figure on in the entertainment world, but by the time the second season had ended, he was beloved, and so Mexican Ironman got a whole lot of cancel culture stuff on the whole Baby Yoda tamales, Baby Yoda tacos, and somehow, some way, everybody thinks I'm some kind of expert in Fanta, or I own cases, or I have a warehouse of Fanta drinks, because I think something that started on the low-key show in the morning, suddenly now I'm getting DMs on my Twitter and texts on my phone, and I go into other streams, and people like Chris Persic today, people ask me for Fanta. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not own a Fanta warehouse, nor a Fanta factory.
I thought you had a Bantha warehouse.
No, I don't have a Fanta warehouse. The Mexican Ironman, I don't even drink well, okay, I do drink orange soda Fanta. No, everyone has that.
Oh, Fanta.
Fanta.
You said Bantha, like in Star Wars.
No. Fanta, Fanta. Okay, no one can resist orange Fanta. But that being said, Mexican Ironman will not be. Mexican Ironman cannot hook you up with free Fanta, Chris Persia, or anyone else. So there will be no Fanta and no virtual Baby Yoda tacos, tamales, or enchiladas available next week. But we will have other things available virtually, as well as your giveaway. Oh, Jesus. Hey, old Star Wars nerd, thanks for stopping by. What up, Dad? What up? And your buddy Tim Nolan showed up.
Tim Nolan, thank you for being here. Hail, Tim Nolan.
You get the trailer worked out, buddy?
Blown away by I just wanted to say I'm blown away by everybody who's here, leaving comments, and really looking forward to when the channel gets a little bigger and we have everybody here that is here now and wants to be here later. I think that's great.
Well, I think you got great content, and certainly the people in here are VIPs. And what I love is you got 2 or 3 of your buddies and friends here that are also solid in the content, and we're going to need that as we go through this. And then, I mean, I got to tell you, I was tickled pink to find out you're the same Cardinal Sin that had stuff in my library back like many years ago. I was just tickled pink. Tickled pink. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. Well, I've got to run. I got something I got to take care of in about 5 minutes. So I can, if you got the tape ready to go, I can stay. Otherwise, I'm going to have to pop out in about 2 minutes.
I am still kind of taking a look real quick. And so, I see what's going on.
And Purple, don't worry about the alien abduction face and my armament here, Purple. I will purge the iron Mexican suit, and I will rid my body of this alien abduction face. Apparently, lizard people sent one of their workers, and I was abducted. And in preparation for the show, I let it happen. But I will purge myself of this alien DNA somehow.
Still looking for how to roll this other one here.
You got to open up a separate tab, a separate window, or a tab.
Mm-hmm.
You're selecting the whole application, so just go to Chrome, create another tab. So you're sharing the entire desktop. Don't share your desktop.
Right.
Don't share your. Stop the share. Stop share. Hit stop share. Okay. Now when you're gonna hit start share, but when it comes up, you're gonna select just the Chrome tab that has that video you want to roll in it.
Yeah, I don't get that option.
Okay, well, what you can do is start the video on your desktop and hit pause before, almost immediately. Double click it, start it, hit pause before you do anything. All right, you got it?
Yep.
Double click on it, and the trailer is going to start, but hit pause before it gets rolling. Now go to start share screen, and then up at the top, you got 3 options. You got desktop, and then it says applications.
Gotcha.
So go to applications or tab and then select it, but you got to click the button that says share audio.
Yep.
If you like, I can, if we can have a virtual SAP button and we could simulcast in Spanish. Bienvenidos al canal Cardinal Sin.
Here we go.
Tenemos tacos, burritos, enchiladas. There you go.
Next week on Into the Fringe, an archival lecture from Mark Davenport, author of UFOs, Visitors from Time.
In other news, he's researched UFOs and abductions for more than 20 years. Author of several books, Mark Davenport is scheduled to speak in Lawrence tonight. Davenport has lectured across the country explaining his views on how UFOs work. Slides will also be shown of UFOs in flight. And questions about the aliens and their crafts are encouraged.
Contrary to popular opinion, there is a lot of evidence. We have hundreds of photographs, hundreds of feet of film, hundreds of videotapes. There are now 2,000 videotapes from Mexico alone. I have convinced myself, I have found the evidence from studying that this is really true, and it just makes me very angry that our government is covering this up. The people have a right to know what's going on, and I feel that it's my job to help tell them.
Also speaking will be Leah Haley. She'll lecture on her meetings with aliens. It begins at 7 p.m. at the Day's Inn.
Don't miss next week's stunning episode of Into the Fringe with your host, Cardinal Sin, and expert guest host, Mexican Ironman. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let your friends know about Into the Fringe. So there we have it.
See you next week, buddy. I'm excited. I'm fired up.
I am too. And I just wanted to thank everybody in the chat again. Eli McInnes, hail Eli McInnes, And thanks again, everybody, for being here. And please be here next week and let everybody that you know, your friends, your family, even people you hate, that we're going to be here at 7 o'clock with Mark Davenport's archival lecture. It's going to be big. It's going to be awesome. And you guys don't want to miss that. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Mexican Ironman. I know you have to get out of that suit and get the wash the alien off, if that's at all possible.
Yeah, I got to run some DNA. There's some DNA work I got to do here, and I got to do it in about 30 seconds here. And I don't know. Let's hope Mexican Ironman tomorrow is his old self here, because the leg just got working, and now the aliens have abducted me.
Well, don't let them probe you. That's one of the reasons why the butt plug exists. But that's for another time.
Okay, you know what? I thank you for leaving me off the show with that image. I normally get later, brother. Love you. Gotta go.
All right. Thanks a lot, folks, and we'll see you next time.